Well, good evening, everybody. Main man, you're Jacob, right? Right on. Here in the classroom. Thanks so much for joining us here live. Thank you, everybody who is dialing in remotely. We continue to operate under very extraordinary circumstances. So let me tell you about my day. For the first time in almost 2 years, I spent the day in my office. I had an early appointment downtown, and I didn't want to have to come down here and go back home and come down here to teach. So I hung out in my very empty office, which is nice. It felt normal. I have to admit, I'm one of those people that misses being at work and having that routine and being around my coworkers and everything like that. Now, granted, none of my coworkers were there. I also got to try out some new technology that we had for joining meetings. It was a nice little device. It was super fun. But I got to experience things like going to Starbucks and eating out of food cart, just things I don't normally do anymore. And I don't know, I was sort of reflecting on how how this is what counts for fun now. Just sort of doing the normal things. But anyway, so it was novel. I'm glad I got a chance to do it, and now we're here for week 3 of advanced programming with Java here at Portland State University. We got some interesting stuff to cover tonight. Let's see here. We'll start out with Prime Minister's questions, and then I'll do a little bit more coding for you all. I was thinking about it over the weekend, and based on some questions that I got from some students, I think there's some refactoring I want to do to the student application that I've been developing. And this refactoring will help you test and unit test your own main methods. So I'm going to do some to mine as an example of things you might want to consider for your own code. But tonight we're going to start our odyssey into pair and mob programming. So tonight we are going to learn about pair programming, and we're going to do our first in-class pair programming code kata. So this is a little program that people are going to pair up and code on together. And so then we'll be able to do that for anyone who's here in the room, and then for anybody who's remote. Let's see here, and then we'll introduce Project 3. So, compared to the last couple of classes, I think this one will seem pretty light. Don't anticipate it going too late, but we still have a lot to cover, a lot of interesting stuff to do, and hope to start providing you with some experiences that you might not have had yet in your software development careers. But to start us off, let's do Prime Minister's questions. This is an opportunity for you all to ask me any questions that you have, things that you encountered while you were working on Project 1, which is due tonight, while you are continuing to work on your cones, and maybe for anyone who broke ground on their Project 2, which is due next week, or anything else related to the class. So what can I tell you? What questions, any feedback do you have for me on things that you liked, things that maybe didn't go so well, or ideas that you have for what we could be doing differently going forward? Question from Patrick. How to view Jacoco's instruction code coverage percentages? That's a great question. Let's see here. There was a similar one in the in Slack earlier, and so then you can also look there. But let me show you what we got. So when you run Maven verify, now one of the things that was in the Maven lecture, I haven't really talked about too much in class. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes now. Maven has Maven defines various what they call goals in phases in the build life cycle. So, for instance, there's a compile phase, and there is a run the unit test phase, and there is assemble the artifact. They call it package and things like that. As a matter of fact, if you run Maven with no command line arguments, I'm pretty sure it spits out. Yeah, here are all of the available life cycle phases. So these, as you can see, there's a bunch of them. And so these are all the various phases that the life cycle goes through. And what a Maven build does is it associates plugin goals. And this is basically something that the plugin does, like compile some Java code or create a jar file or analyze the analyze the code coverage of your test. And so each goal has a default lifecycle phase that's associated with, and also the pom.xml can configure which lifecycle phase a given goal is executed during. That's a long way of saying when you run Maven Verify, it builds all sorts of things in your project. So it goes through and compiles any source code that needs to be compiled. It runs your unit test against that code. It builds the artifact, in this case, a jar file for it. It runs the integration tests. And then the last step is verify, right? We said Maven Verify. So that runs all the other phases up to verify. And in verify, what it does is it, actually, sorry, we should probably run it with -d greater, because that's the thing that will fail if coverage isn't there. Last thing verify does is it invokes a goal in the Jacoco plugin that says, hey, validate whether or not there was enough code coverage, depending on the configuration. And all of our projects are configured to have at least 75% code coverage. This one said it did. Let's see here. Did it actually spit out the number? No, I guess it only spits out the number when it fails. Now, if it does fail, let's see here. Where do I have? I probably don't have a failing one right now. But what it does create in the target directory, in target site Jacoco, it has an index.html, and it creates a report that, and I'll make it bigger so everybody can see, that tells you how much coverage. Oh, it says it only had 63. I wonder why they didn't fail. Because I said D greater instead of P greater. That's why. So I would expect this to fail. I like to watch it fail. Just want to make sure it still works. But anyway, so then we'll come back to see that later. This report, again, which is a target site Jacoco index.html, lets you navigate through your source code. And you can see, like, here's my project 1 class. And in my main method, it says, aha, it's claiming that system.exit and system.out were never executed, which is probably true. I think I only have one integration test for this, and it doesn't pass in any arguments, so it's not going to do that. Perhaps, well, I could, I suppose, go through and then add that. But anyway, to answer your question, Patrick, the answer is oh, good. It says there's not been. It doesn't work because the coverage ratio was 63%, but the minimum expectation is 75. And so then, yes, that file again is a target site Jacoco index.html, and some other, let's see here, some other questions. So the lines in red weren't tested. That is correct. So here, now it highlighted the class. I'm not too sure exactly what that means. Let's look at some more interesting. So project 1 probably isn't the most interesting one to look at. Let's look at student. We'll see how my code coverage is in student. I've been developing student using test-driven development, so I hope, anyway, that I've got at least 75% test coverage. But Jacoco will tell us. And that's another nice thing about test-driven development. Remember that you only write code once you have a test for it, so pretty much all your code is tested. Now, does that mean that there won't be any bugs? No, of course not. But a bug is just a test that you haven't written and gotten passing yet. So it says that, yep, it's okay. Let's open up the report again. Here we are in student, 83%. Okay, pretty good. Let's see what hasn't been covered. Some stuff in the main. Okay, yep, some, oh, interesting. So maybe we probably didn't exercise all of these error situations of when, like, you had an invalid GPA in the main. We probably did in other places. And you know what? This is okay. The goal isn't to have 100% code coverage. That's usually overkill. But 75% is pretty good, and it probably means that you've thought about all of the interesting logic that's been implemented. And really, it's the stuff that isn't implemented, so the stuff that isn't tested, or should I say this? The stuff that isn't implemented, you haven't thought about because you haven't written a test for it. So, but yes, again, oh, interesting, right? So it's saying, oh yeah, I haven't invoked the says method. So this can actually be a pretty good indication of like, where is that you need to write a test, or maybe where have you forgotten? So yeah, next. Okay, now I'm curious. Let's go take a look at. I thought I said. Oh yeah. Okay. So now let's go write a test for student. Oops. Student. Well, I'm looking at it. Student test is what I wanted. I'm going to get my IDE set up the way I like. Student test. I'm going to send this to the opposite split and move right. So I want a test over here that says, let's see here. I don't think I invoked the says method. Nope. I say test void says, well, yes, is not implemented yet. And so let's see here. I'm going to create a student with GPA short 4.0. I'm going to use the menus, and I'm going to start doing keyboard shortcuts. Introduce variable. I'm going to call this student. And I'm going to invoke student.says. Now this should throw an exception. I'm going to run this though just to find out. Thank you, Eric, for the Mean Girls commentary. Cool, not implemented yet. And so I should expect that to say assert throws. It'll throw an unsupported operation exception. And I want to have this lambda here that calls that method. And there. Oops, what is it saying? Probably going to be converted to some method reference. There it is. Gorgeous. By the way, all the stuff with method references and everything is covered in the functional programming in Java 8 screencast. I encourage you to check it out. It's sort of some good next level Java programming, going beyond just plain old object oriented to really understanding how to leverage a functional programming style in Java. Great. So now this test passes. So now when I run verify again, what I'm looking for is demonstration that now that I've written that test, I now have code coverage of my says method. Now if I reload this page, hey, the says method is green now. Awesome. Good deal. Okay. And actually, now that I think about it, this would be an interesting way of, hey, let's say you've got like a code base that needs to be refactored, or rather, sorry, let me explain what that means. Let's say you've inherited or you've written a bunch of code that doesn't have tests associated with it. And this is kind of a precarious situation, right? Because if you change that code, you won't necessarily know if you've broken something. And as code gets more and more complex, especially when you're new to it, you don't understand all the nuances. Even if you wrote it, you might have forgotten sort of like what you were thinking in the moment. And so without tests, it's hard to make changes and feel confident about those changes. So one of the things that you can do is start writing some tests for your code, for this code that you inherited, so that you understand what it's doing. And you can use a tool like Jacoco to look at code coverage to figure out, hey, maybe I've got some method that's really big and really long with lots of conditional logic in it. How do I write a test that exercises all that logic? And so what does it mean? So anyway, I'm a big fan of tests. I guess it's no secret. And this is how you can leverage code coverage to help you build up a test suite, to help you understand code and gain confidence in what it's doing. So that took me 15 minutes to answer that question. We got plenty of time tonight. So what else can I tell you? What has been surprising about the first couple of weeks of the course? Is there anything that maybe made you go, or something that maybe didn't meet or maybe even exceeded your expectations? Nope. Nope, sorry, see the command to see the Jacoco index page again, yes. So from the, so open is a Mac thing, it just opens up whatever application. But I'll just paste it here in the chat. Open up the target site Jacoco index file from the, the airport or the airline directory. After you've run Maven W verify. Oops. Okay. Is there a specific grading rubric for the projects? Rubrics. So I have to admit, rubric wasn't a word when I was a student. So, London, is it fair to say that your question is there a common set of test cases for the project? Just like where we'll lose points. Yes. Okay. Right. That makes sense. So what you will see. So I think the answer is yes. But here's what I'm going to give you. So I grade. So I have a grading script that goes through and builds your project and then runs it through a number of test cases, including things like generating your API documentation and measuring your code coverage. And for each one of those test cases, I have a given when then scenario, which I hope sort of sets the expectation for you and me and a grader in terms of like what to expect in that situation. Now, these test cases are not something that I'm just going to give everybody, because in that case, everybody would get an A. Part of this course, and part of what makes it a challenging senior level course, is that you get to experience, you get to learn how to read a specification and read between the lines, ask clarifying questions, and then look for the appropriate positive and negative test cases to develop your code. So, but what you will get is output saying, hey, for each test case, a description of the test case using given when then, a command line that your program was executed with, and then the output of your program that it produces when it was executed with that command line. And then the grader looks at your output, compares it to the expectation set in the test scenario, and assigns a grade, or rather takes off the appropriate amount of points. If it meets expectations, that you get 0 points taken off. So I'll say you lose points when the output of your program does not meet the expectations of me and the grader. Cool, thanks, you're welcome. All right. How are the cones coming along? And the reason I ask is that the cones sometimes sneak up on people. So you've got the project to contend with. You've also got the cones. The cones are meant to sort of go along with the project, so you learn the language and stuff. So please be sure to keep up with those. Toy asks, what is the test coverage target for each project? 75%. Or basically, if you run with the -p grader and the build is successful, you've met the target. If it so let's see here. Like right now, this was 83%. Here for student, remember when I ran airline, it was only 63 or something like that. That was not sufficient. So 75% is sufficient. Okay. Eric asks, as far as utilizing late days for projects goes, is this handled automatically? I was submitting later in a day or two as noticed by your script, or should we specifically send an email about it? You don't need to send an email about it. It's kind of nice to give me a heads up, or just like a Slack or something like that. But my grading, yeah, the submit script knows when it was submitted, and looks at the date on the email and all of that. So you don't need to tell me if it's going to be late. I'll know. Okay. Oh, Tuan asks, you just only accept late day for one project. No, you have 2 late days. You could use both late days on the same project. Um, if your project's going to be like more than a day late, though, please reach out to me. Let me know. So yeah, I don't need. Okay, I know when it's late, but like if you're behind and you need some help, or hey, you got something going on, especially if you've been sick, or especially if someone in your house has been sick and you need to take care of them, please let me know. I'll keep stressing this. We're operating under very extraordinary circumstances, and I realize it, and I know that all of us in our own ways are impacted by what's going on, and it can change from day to day and week to week. And some days it seems like things are almost normal, and then the next day we're dealing with things that we've never thought we'd have to deal with before. So I will try to be as accommodating as I can, but I appreciate it when people are proactive about things. And even if maybe waited a little too long, I still want to know. I still want to help because even before COVID, I found that very often just like a little extra help here and there, an extra day or two, can make all the difference between being successful in the course and just having it be a slog and a struggle, which I don't want for anybody. So please reach out to me if things aren't going the way that you think. Can you resubmit the project? One for better test coverage. Test coverage does count up to a point for your grade. So just like if you discover there's like, oh no, there was a bug and like I didn't handle like the command line correctly, yes, you can you can resubmit it. That will count as one of your resubmits, but it'll also help you improve your grade. Okay. Nothing. Any other questions? Nope. Will I hold another office hour this week? Yeah, I can do that. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. Sunday night worked pretty good for me. I will try to do that again. I need to, it all depends on what my, family plans are for the weekend and everything. I will let you know by Saturday at noon. So please, on Saturday afternoon, please check Slack, and I'll also post it as in an event or something in Canvas, which I think sends people notifications. It looks like people are able to use Canvas for taking the quizzes. I think this is a new technology for most of you, and so then let me know if something though isn't working there. And at the end of the term, I'd really appreciate, or at any point during the term, I'd appreciate feedback on how I'm leveraging Canvas. It's a new tool to me. I'm trying to use it a little bit more than I did D2L in terms of helping you all understand what the work of the course is. Okay. Let's do a little bit more pair programming. Oh, sorry, a little bit more coding. Let me just get this test in and out of the way. So let's see here. Invoke the test the says method to get some more code coverage. So, during the week, I was corresponding, and like during office hours, I was talking with some students about testing. And a particular question came up, which was basically along the lines of, well, the vast majority of the logic in Project One is in the main class and the main method. So isn't that Project One class? The flight and the airline, they're pretty simple. And the question was, well, how do I write unit tests for that? And it's like, well, that's a good question. If the logic is in the main method, and it's interacting with, system.out and system.exit and stuff, then it's, not a good candidate for a unit test. But I thought about it a little bit more, and it's like, well, generally speaking, you want to favor unit tests more than integration tests. For these command line projects, the integration tests are run pretty quickly because they don't have very much setup. But when you get to the REST project, Project 5, the integration tests will start up a web server, which takes, 30 seconds, right? It's not a fast operation. And so, but you really want your unit tests to be, as fast as possible because you want to run them a lot. Right after code change, ideally you want to run all of your tests to make sure you haven't broken anything. So I thought, well, how can we make it so that we have more tests for our main method? And I'm like, well, we could refactor the code to make it so that the majority of the command line parsing logic can be unit tested. And so what are the criteria for a unit test in this versus an integration test in this case? Well, if the code doesn't call system.out or it doesn't call system.exit, then we can run it in a unit test. So I thought we would explore, and spend, I don't know, half an hour or so exploring how to refactor our main method in our student class, so that we can do more testing, more unit testing of that, as opposed to having to rely so much on the integration test. And I'm doing this to sort of give you an example of how this could be done, and you might want to apply these same techniques to your Project 1 main. Certainly, you're going to be living with that command line parsing code for a while because Project 2 parses the command line, and spoiler alert, so do Project 3 and Project 4. So having well-tested code and well-factored code that you can evolve easily is probably a good thing to do. So we've got all of these tests that we wrote for the all these integration tests that we wrote, and these are still fine tests. Now this is a refactoring, right? And so what we're doing here is we're going to look at the code and change it in a way so that it's easier to read, or in this case, easier to test. But we're not going to change the underlying functionality of it, which means that all of our tests are still valid and should still have the same behavior. So we shouldn't have to change the integration test. We're just changing how the main method is implemented. So we'll add some new tests here. Now, I think ultimately what I want to do is I want to have a method that creates a student object from the command line argument. So I basically want to take all this code right here and move it into a method, and I can write a unit test for that method and go from there. So and now remember I said the unit test can't it can't invoke system.out because we don't know how to get it back, and it can't invoke system.exit because that will kill the JVM that's running the test, and we don't want that. So the other thing you need to figure out is how this method, and so then I'll just write the method now. So this will be student, create student from command line arguments. And this will be string args. Another thing that this needs to do is it needs to figure out how to convey when something's wrong with the command line. And I think I want to do that using exceptions. So for instance, I want to take this code right here. Yeah. So, okay. So the first thing I'm going to do then, oh boy, how much of this should I? Maybe what I can do, what if I just kind of did this? what if I moved this code sort of inside that block there where I create the student? So I'm going to move this down here. I'm going to move this down here. And then I'm going to move this exception down here also. Oops, what doesn't it like? Oh, GPA. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I'm gonna move that code there. I need to change a couple of these things. Let's see here. It doesn't. So it doesn't have the GPA string. Does this have a? That doesn't have a way to get the string back that couldn't be parsed. So okay, well let's just see where we go here. Oops. Fine. So I will declare, just to make it compile, I'll declare that up there. I'll declare I'll split this into the declaration assignment, move this up here. It's going to complain because those might not be assigned, which is true. This code is getting kind of messy. I'm just wondering if I just start over and do it differently. I think I will. Okay, so yeah. Okay, I like that code better. Oops. I'm going to join those two together. Because really what I want is all of this code right here. And I think I want, well, I sort of want that code too. But I want all this code right here to go into my method up here to create student from command line arguments. Just going to return that now. And here now the student is going to declare that variable. Create local variable student. No, it's a student. And this equals create student from, oops, what was it called? Oh yeah, it needs to be static though. Oops. There we go. Okay, so the whole idea is I'm trying to put as much code as possible into this create student for command line arguments method and get it out here out of my main method. Because I can only test my main method with integration tests. I want to test all the logic for creating a student using an integration, if we're using a unit test. Okay then, so there's this, and some things aren't working here, like the GPA, and now we need to figure out. So I think so when I create the student, it's going to throw the invalid GPA exception. So you know what I want? I want the exception to be able to tell me what the invalid GPA is. So I'm just going to add a method. Oops. To that exception, and this was an exception that I wrote, as I recall. So let's create a property. Let's see here. This is not a string. This is going to be a double. And then, yep, I do not want a setter because it's going to be immutable. And I'm going to create a field. And I'm going to make it final. And so I'll have to initialize it in the constructor. Nope. I'm just going to initialize it to this dot invalid GPA equals GPA. I'm going to rename this to be, let's go rename the code concurrences invalid GPA. Cool. This is something you can do with the exception, right? Have the exception, give it some state, give it some payload that it carries around to say, hey, here's like, you know, here's the problematic data. Okay. Nice. And now it doesn't like the fact that there's the GPA string here. It'd be nice if the number format exception told us what the poorly formed number was, the thing that couldn't be parsed. But it doesn't. Let me get rid of this. Think about it. And that's fine. So now I just need to figure out how to get it there. So maybe I can't rely on throwing a number format exception anymore. And maybe I should have a new kind of exception for this. So instead of doing parse.double here, it could throw an invalid GPA exception. Which means that maybe this should take a string instead of a double. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it should. Okay. So let's do that then. So it shouldn't throw this anymore. And instead, oops, what doesn't it like? I deleted too much. And instead, invalid GPA. I now want to throw a string. I want this to be a string. So let's see here, how can I do that? Now let's change this to be a string. Change this to be a watch me do this. I'm going to create another constructor that takes a string, invalid GPA. And this is now going to be a string. And now I'm going to call the other constructor by saying this string dot value of invalid GPA. So that'll convert it to a string. It'll send it down here. And I think that'll be okay. And let's run our test and see what I've done. I've changed some code. I've probably broken something, but let's find out. So let's run all of our unit tests to see if that still works. I think it will because I really haven't. Oh, I think have I changed anything? I changed the exception, but everything still seems to be good there. How about my integration tests? Oh, all sorts of things blew up. Oh, could not load class. Right, this happens when you, this particular error happens when you run Maven verify and it does the code coverage. It leaves the class files in kind of a funny state. So all you need to do is a Maven W clean. That will delete all of the class files, the compiled class files for your integration tests. And now, if you run it again, it tells you how to recompile things. So that's not a big deal. And now it should be able to run it. Yep. Okay. It says invalid number is not a GPA, and it says oh, it got a number format exception. Meanwhile, there are messages coming in that I've been missing. We'll come back to the failing test in a moment. Let's see here. JUnit PDF got cut off on your site because it only has 2 pages, where the screen cache shows there's only 2 pages. So that's messed up. Sorry about that, Eric. Could you please send me an email or an IM, and I'll get right on that. That's unfortunate. Sorry about that. Oh, okay. Yeah, Eric also had another idea for what we could do to get that. Yeah, so he said, hey, I don't know if it's along the lines of what you're trying to do or if it's poor practice, but what if you did a try catch block on the parse double statement in the create student from command line arguments, and then a catch block through a new number format exception with an attached message? I could do that, I think, because I think number format exception has a string constructor. That might work, but you're kind of relying on number format exception, the behavior number format exception. That's not a class that I control. So I think my preference would be, well, let's use the code that we control, which is invalid GPA exception. And I think we'll address that right now. Susan asked, when do you have to do the clean again? Yeah, you need to do the clean. There was an error message. Let me show it again. So if you run verify, oh wait, this isn't going to work because it's going to fail. Well, maybe it'll still work. So when you run Maven Verify, it runs the code coverage. And in order to do the code coverage, it Jacoco annotates or, what's the right word? Rewrites the bytecode. Basically, it does all sorts of neat stuff to the bytecode so that it can measure which lines of code have been covered. And it leaves the class files in kind of a funny state. And so then if you don't run it if you don't run it with all the right Jacoco stuff, like if you just run it from IntelliJ, it gets nope. Okay, sorry, I got to make this thing pass, and then we'll get back to that, Susan. So here, let's split the declaration, and now we're going to try on this in a try catch. Catch the number format exception here. And now if we get a number format exception, we'll throw a new invalid GPA exception with the GPA string. This is the code that we just introduced. And now I think if we run this, it should pass. This is a very common thing, right? Where remember, part of a method's interface, part of the API, is the exceptions that it throws. And so here, we want the create student to throw the student-related exceptions. So things like invalid GPA, not just a number format exception. Great, now everything works. So now if I run the code coverage again, trying to reproduce this problem that you sometimes have when you run code coverage and then you run code in IntelliJ. Now if I try to run this test again, we'll see if it fails. That same error. It didn't. Sorry. Okay. I guess I couldn't get it to reproduce. It'll be on the video though. And it's and actually there is a note about this in, I think it's on the Getting Started repository, because this gets people a lot. I know I have a note about here someplace. It's probably in the testing one, in the testing handout. How to tester code, how to tester projects. Jupyter. Yeah, here you go. So this is the so if you see something like test engine with IDJ and Jupyter fails to discover test, just do a Maven clean. So let me just quick make a screenshot and I'll post it here in the I can't post screenshots. Zoom. So substand odd. Anyway, it's in that handout. Okay. So now that I've done that, when I added this logic here, I probably should also write a unit test for it, because I want to be able to unit test my create student from command line. So so I'll write a test here. So void create student from command line with invalid, well, with non-numeric GPA throws invalid GPA exception. So if I spelled all that right, oops. GPA throws invalid GPA exception. Great. So let's see here. So now, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn this into a var args to make it easier to test. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to annotate this with visible for testing. Just as sort of a note to the code reader to say, oh, yeah, the reason that this isn't a private method is because it's invoked by testing code. So let's see here. We're going to say create student with GPA, and the name is going to be name. No, I can't remember. It's name GPA is the second one. Is that right? Yeah, GPA is the third one. So name, gender second. I should probably remember all this. Project 0. Here's the first one. Gender, yep. So the gender will be other, and then the GPA will be invalid GPA, so let's press into string, which is invalid GPA, and let's have this be GPA. Oops, what is it complaining about there? Oh, student dot create student from command line. I'm just gonna have this. So this should throw an exception. I'm just gonna run it to see what it does to make sure that I understand it correctly. It does. It said invalid GPA. So here's what you can do. You can say assert throws and assert that it throws an invalid GPA exception. And the class that does that is this thing. And if you run this should pass now. Super hard to read. See here, if I put this on a new line, is it any easier to read? Maybe. More than that, though, the assert throws method returns the exception that was thrown, which is really nice because it lets you do things like this. So that's the exception that was thrown, and now I can say assert that the invalid GPA is, so the thing associated with the exception really is, the invalid GPA that I expected. So now when I run this should all pass. And this is this is what you do in your, in your unit test. This is what you do with JUnit. This is what you do with Hamcrest, is that you basically set up all these conditions just to validate that what you've done is correct. Now, all this stuff passed because we had already written it. This is not uncommon when you refactor code. Again, we're not adding new functionality. We're making the existing functionality easier to test. So again, now, in addition to validating with a more expensive-ish to run integration test, now I can use a unit test to test this code. Okay. So I guess so I've done this. Now this code right here, I think this should also be code that's validated that belongs up here. So now let's have a test. We say void create student from command line with 0 arguments, and this needs to then throw some kind of new exception. So throws missing command line arguments. Argument exception. So now I will assert that now I need a missing command line arguments exception. So let's student dot missing command line arguments exception dot class. I will create that class. Yay. It says one related problem. It's probably saying that this, assert that, when student dot create nothing. Oops. So it should be assert throws and assert that. Should be spelled correctly. Assert throws. And now it's probably saying, what is it saying? Probably that it doesn't. Yeah, that's basically saying that it should extend some sort of exception. So extends runtime exception. What is it saying here? Maybe static. That's nice. Now, if I run that, says unexpected exception type. It expected a missing command line, but instead got an array index out of bounds here on line 114, oh, that's the test, sorry, caused by student line 87. Well, it's not surprising because I don't check for that. Okay, so that's good. So now I basically want this large logic right here. I want to say if args is less than 3, I want to throw a new missing command line arguments exception. And down here, I want to say I want to add another try block. So if I catch a missing command line arguments exception, I want to print that error message and exit. I'm going to rerun my unit test. So you see, my main method is getting smaller and smaller, and I'm adding the new logic to the method that I can unit test. Because again, this method doesn't call system.out. This method doesn't call system.exit. It lets the main method take care of that. This just has all the logic of parsing the command line. Okay, good. So my unit tests work, and I'm going to run my integration tests too, which again, I haven't modified any of my integration tests, and they all pass. And this is good. This is what you expect, right? We're just refactoring. We didn't change any of the functionality. We just changed how it was implemented and made it easier to unit test. And we did that by making this method, which is expressive in terms of how it conveys these error conditions. It throws all these exceptions. And ultimately, this is good for a number of reasons. You're decoupling the application logic, like parsing the command line, from how errors in the command line, and actually even the output of what it does, from that method under test. So this right here, right now we're invoking that method here from our main method, and we are interacting with system.out and system.exit here because it's a command line application. But imagine that you had an application in that was a web application. You'll see that in a couple of weeks. There, you don't write to system.out. You certainly don't call system.exit because that will kill your web server. You provide output to the user, and you provide error information to the user using different mechanisms. This code, though, the create student from command line arguments, can work in either environment because it doesn't assume that it's being invoked from a command line program. It instead has a contract that says, well, you give me a number of arguments, and I'll return you a student based on that. Okay, let's add some new stuff to this now. Let's see here. Gender, classes. What do you want to do? I kind of want to do the gender. So I guess, let's see here. Oh, you know what I could do? What I don't do here is I don't do any positive tests. So yeah, question from Susan. Yeah.
Yes. When on the right-hand side of your page there, the code. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay. Where it says, for create student from command line in the middle there, where you have assert that in what's in the parentheses. I'm a little confused on what that does exactly, because I see that you have the exception get invalid GPA, but why does it have to be equal to invalid GPA? What is it testing exactly there?
Great question. I did go over that really fast, and so I'm happy to take a couple of moments and go over in more detail. So let's show the entire thing here. So, and this code does get a little challenging to read. So let's start in the middle and work our way out. So the code under test here is create student from command line arguments with the arguments name, other, and invalid GPA. Invalid GPA is a variable which is declared up here and is the string GPA. And actually, let's just call this something a little more readable and just call it, invalid GPA. This is clearly, or maybe not a double, right? So this is clearly not a double. It's a string that isn't a double. So when I send this invalid GPA to the create student from command line arguments method, I expect that an invalid GPA exception will be thrown. And I assert that expectation by saying, well, I assert that an invalid GPA exception is thrown when I invoke this create student from command line arguments code. So assert throws, basically what it does is it invokes this code and says, aha, yes, I caught an exception and it was an invalid GPA exception. That's great. That just asserts that the exception was thrown. But not only do I expect that the exception is thrown, but that when that exception is thrown, the value of its getInvalidGPA method is that string that I passed in. So what this allows me to validate is that not only was the exception thrown, but the exception contained the payload that I expected. It contained the it contained the value that was the invalid GPA. Does that make sense?
I think so, because you could put in any string when you test it, in main, but then it'd compare it and say, oh, because that's just an example where it says not a double, it could be anything. I think I get that, because you're comparing, because you had them written as the same word before. That was what confused me.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
and that is a sign of a test that's not well written, right? You read the test and it's like, I don't understand what it's doing. So thank you for asking this clarifying question. I was able to make the code better and I believe more readable based on that feedback.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Actually, you know what? I want to use this as an opportunity to maybe dig a little bit deeper in this and show you how you can debug to learn a little bit more. But first, I want to commit the code. I'm feeling a little antsy because I haven't committed in a while. So refactor the logic for parsing the command line, parsing command line and creating a student into its own method so that it can be unit tested. Push. Okay. I'm going to set a debugger breakpoint right here in my create student from command line arguments method, and I'm going to rerun this test again under the debugger just so that we can take a deeper look at what's passed in and at what the logic is. Okay, so I ran the test. This code actually, you know what? I'm going to put a breakpoint there just so that we can sort of step through things a little bit more easily. Okay, so I'm running the test. Here it is. It's about to execute the first line of the test where it assigns the value not a double to the invalid GPA variable. I'm going to use this is the step over or F8 command to go to the next line. And here I am in insert throws. And so now it's going to execute this line, which will then invoke create student. And now my debugger stopped over here in create student because now we're running the create student from command line arguments method. So here's args. As you can see, it is a string of length 3 that contains name, other, and not a double. Because the length is not less than 3, I skip over that one. I'm going to extract the name variable and the GPA string variable there from the array. So now GPA string is a string, not a double. Now, when I attempt to call parse double with the value not a double, a number format exception is thrown. And it says, yep, for input string, not a double. It's a bummer that we can't get that value, right? But we can't. And now what I'm going to do? Well, I'm going to create this new, I'm going to throw a new invalid GPA exception with this GPA string. Now I am going to step into this constructor. So now here I am in the constructor. It invokes the inherited constructor by calling super and assigns the value this .gpa to the value not a double. That's the thing that's passed in. So this exception carries this payload. It has this state that is the string that was not that wasn't a valid GPA. And when you call get invalid GPA, it returns that same string, right? So it returns not a double. And so then it does this. And now I'm back over here executing my test. And now I have, it did throw a test. And assert throws captures the exception and will return that value. So now I can interrogate it further and perform more tests on it. So I want to say I expect that the value that is in the payload in the exception is that invalid GPA that I passed in. And sure enough, if I go and I look at the exception, yep, invalid GPA is not a double. And so that assertion passes. So that's what I was doing. And I know that the code went by pretty fast and there's a lot there, but you can use assert throws to not only validate that yes, an exception was thrown, but you can get the exception and then you can do stuff with it. Okay, I'll keep running and everything passed. And you know that because it says so in the console. So just to review, what we've done so far in class tonight is I did some refactoring of my main method to take out all the logic that converts the command line arguments to a student, so that all of the logic for the command line parsing is here in its own method that can be unit tested because none of the code up here interacts with system.out or system exit. And this is just a good pattern to have because it allows you to write unit tests which execute faster than integration tests, and it makes your code more reusable because it could be now used from a context other than a command line application, and there wouldn't be any dependencies on the on standard error and standard and system.exit, which you can't always invoke safely depending on where your Java program is running. Okay. Any questions? Any more questions on that? Nope. Okay, let's take a break. Let's take 10 minutes. We'll be back at 6:43, 6:45, and then it'll be time to learn about some pair programming, and then you'll be doing some pair programming. We'll see you in a little bit.
Here again.
Recording in progress.
Hey, so I took off the ridiculous, like, I was gonna say Janet Jackson headphones. We're not doing tech support anymore. We're gonna try this. So thanks to all of you who paid your tuition and stuff. The fancy rooms here at Portland State have these, let's see here, the meeting is being recorded, I got it. Have these panels where it's all integrated. And so now what I've done is I have joined the Zoom from the classroom right here. This has, Jacob was helping me out. This has a couple of advantages. First of all, when anyone speaks, we can hear it in the room. So like when I think it was Susan who was asking her question, Jacob here couldn't hear it. It would be on the recording though, so you can go back and view it later. And actually, this will be really important tonight because after we do the pair programming, I would like everybody to come back and then share their experiences pair programming, and I want Jacob here in the classroom and me to be able to hear it. The microphone is right here, which I think picks up my voice okay, but my laptop screen is in between me and it, so please get my attention if you can. Oh, I'm looking at the Zoom meeting on my, it's so confusing, I love it. Sorry, if you can't hear me very well, just let me know. Okay, so let me turn off this thing. Okay, so at the beginning of class, we did some prime minister's questions. We then went on to do a little bit of refactoring with the main method for to make it a little bit more unit testable. Might explore some of that later. But now I want to start talking about pair programming. So let's see here. Oh, let me get, sorry, I gotta go back here. I want to see everybody on the screen here. How do I? Yeah. Well, show of hands. Oh, that's a mess. So I want to see what happens. Oh, we can get the chats going on here too. Nice. Yikes. Go away. There we go. Let's see here. In the chat. So say yes or no. Who here has heard of pair programming before? Nice. And then my next question was going to be, who here has who has done pair programming before? I got a couple of yeses, mostly no's stuff. Okay, good to know. So let's see here. So let's see here. So I'm going to play back a video to sort of introduce it, and let's actually see if this works. This ought to work, right? Because the audio, I assume it shares the computer audio too. Okay, nice. So I have to warn you, this is a pretty cheesy and old-looking video, but I think it's a good job of explaining pair programming. So please chat if you cannot hear it. Hasn't started yet. I would expect some audio at this point. But that might be the volume here in the room from the machine. No. Can you hear it on your machine? Let me start playing it again.
Your computer audio is not muted, anything like that?
Oh, yeah, you know what? That might be it. Wait a second. But why would computer audio? It's still, yeah, it didn't disconnect. Yeah, it doesn't have. No, wait a second. I'm sorry, just not.
That's right. It was on the right one before. That's why you got feedback. Extron scalar on that one. That's the right one.
Okay, but now I need to move the Skype. I just need to turn off. That's all right.
Yep.
So leave the audio. Oh, how do I stop the audio?
Oh, is the mic on here?
No, I haven't muted. No, the speakers. How do I do the audio? Yeah.
That and then
Oh yeah, leave computer audio. Durr. Okay, so maybe that's better. Now let's see.
other option
Yeah.
is if you could just share your audio in Zoom, like share your screen and then share your
Oh,
audio.
so we can do that. Yeah, let's.
One way.
Okay, that would be the next thing to try. Oops,
There is a share audio checkbox in the
Right.
shared screen.
There we go.
Student
Oh, that
who is
sounds
new
terrible.
to pair program.
You just did a share audio.
No, started playing it back. I think I need to mute this microphone though. Otherwise, it sounds pretty bad. Wait a second. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Hello and welcome to Fun with Pair Programming, an introduction to pair programming for students. If you're a student who is new to pair programming, you've come to the right place. This video will help provide valuable information to make you the best pair programmer you can possibly be in your classes and beyond. Pair programming refers to the practice whereby two programmers work side by side on one computer, collaborating on the same design, algorithm, code, or test. The pair is made up of a driver who actively types at the computer or records a design, and a navigator who watches the work of the driver and identifies problems, asks clarifying questions, and makes suggestions. Switch roles from time to time to share the work evenly and get the most out of your pair programming experience. You'll hear effective pairs constantly chatting as they jointly decide how to tackle the task at hand.
Well, actually, I don't even know where it's saving this stuff. So we create a new patient and that's record. Oh,
Alright.
probably in save data file. Mhm. So it's going through, looks like a list of records.
So we probably, since we just added the height and weight, I don't know if that's actually getting written.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
So
Why do so many thousands of students around the world prefer pair programming? Why don't we ask some to compare old-fashioned solo programming to this new and innovative system?
Wait, what was the org?
You would program by yourself, so you usually be just by yourself in a computer, maybe in a cube or at a single desk, and it's a very lonely type thing. It can be.
Well, it could be really frustrating. You'd sit there banging your head against a desk and trying to find, the missing bracket, or couldn't figure out why the logic in your program didn't quite work right. And with two people there, it's a lot easier to work those problems out a lot more quickly, so you're not frustrated all the time.
This is nothing new either. Most science labs take advantage of lab partners and small groups. Computer science is no different. You can learn a lot from working with other people. Students find it helps them get better scores on programming projects. Pair programming helps them learn, so they get better grades on exams as well. Mostly, students report that they enjoy getting to know the people in their classes better. This makes it much easier to interact when problems do arise, because you've got a class full of friends instead of strangers. Last, but certainly not least, students are much more likely to figure out solutions if they've got someone to brainstorm with, and this can lead to faster completion times and a better understanding of the subject matter. Students often find the whole experience much more enjoyable and less frustrating. Pair programming will also help you prepare for your career in computer science. In the professional world, people collaborate and pair program all the time, and as an expert, you'll already be ahead of the game. Have you ever spent most of your class time with your hand in the air, getting nowhere on a project while you wait for help from your professor or lab instructor? With pair programming, those days are history, and you'll find yourself having a lot more fun. Who knows? Maybe you'll even look forward to the alarm going off in the morning so you can get to class. Now that you know the basics, let's look at some simple do's and don'ts of pair programming. First, be sure to talk. Not a minute should go by when you're not communicating somehow. Don't say anything that might insult your partner. Even if you're only joking, he or she might take it personally. Don't forget to listen too. Both the driver and the navigator should be fully engaged in the project. So much so that the driver can pass the keyboard to the navigator at any time, and he or she will be ready for the switch with no questions asked. Periodically switch positions so you can gain experience in both roles. Switching helps prevent errors and stimulates conversation too. Be patient. Be prepared to explain yourself to your partner, and don't get frustrated if they don't understand it first. By explaining your work to your partner, you'll be helping yourself learn as well. Remember the ancient Chinese proverb, to teach is to learn. And be sure to give the driver a little time to correct his or her own mistakes. After all, no one likes a backseat driver. Respect your partner. The golden rule is key here. Just remember to treat your partner with the same level of respect that you expect from him or her. It doesn't matter if they are from another culture, an introvert, an extrovert, a procrastinator, or the valedictorian. We are all here to accomplish one thing, and everyone has something to offer. Take breaks. You can get more done in 1 hour pair programming than in several hours by yourself. But this can take a toll on your brain. Don't forget to take a break every so often to keep yourself fresh and energetic. When you return, you'll likely see something you overlooked before. Be prepared. Be sure to do any preliminary work ahead of time, and don't be late for appointments with your partner. Their time is valuable, as is yours. Hygiene. Think about it. How would you feel if the person you were going to spend a couple of hours with smelled terrible? Take a shower, brush your teeth, bring some mints. You know the drill. Have fun! Working with someone else can be a lot more fun than working by yourself. You can share a laugh, relieve some tension, and have someone to celebrate with when you get that last test case to pass. Believe me, that's a great feeling. Now that we've gone through all the things you should do as a pair programmer, let's go through some of the things you should avoid when working with your partner. Don't be a keyboard hog, or think that just because your partner is a novice and you're more experienced, that they won't bring something to the table. Don't constantly tell other people what to do either. You don't want to be the only person in the class that no one wants to work with because you're too bossy. There is another side to that coin, so don't be intimidated. Some people are afraid that they don't know enough, but chances are your partner feels the same way, and you both know way more than you give yourself credit for. Trust me, it will all be fine. The primary goal of pairing is to work together towards the best possible solution. So don't be afraid to speak up if you disagree with your partner from time to time. Your partner may as well be working alone if you're not willing to speak up. If you're unhappy with your pair programming situation for any reason, don't hesitate to talk to your professor or teaching aide. That's their job, and they will be happy to help you resolve whatever problem you may have. As you can see, there are many benefits to pair programming, but there are also a few speed bumps. Sometimes you'll find it difficult to find time in your schedules to meet, for example. But students all over the world agree that the benefits outweigh any drawbacks that they can find.
If there's two of you working on it, typically you're spending a lot less time working on it, so this is great for homework. Then also I would say that in general, your solution is going to be better.
So if you're working with somebody and their grade or their deadline matters to you, you're more likely to get your work done at an earlier time. Also with pair programming, you can typically have higher grades on assignments. There's higher quality code as well.
This concludes our journey through the exciting world of pair programming, but there's still much to learn. Take these tips with you into your next pair programming lab and join the growing number of pair programmers across the country, the world, and beyond.
Oh, so cheesy. I love it. So, what did you take away from that video? So either raise your hand if you're on the Zoom, or feel free to come off mute and talk about some of the things that you or chat. Some of the things that you took away from the video. What are some of the tips and tricks that you thought were maybe insightful or interesting or maybe a little controversial about pair programming? Nothing, stunned silence. Thanks, Jacob. Definitely give your partner time to fix mistakes. Yeah, not bossy, which can be tough, right? You know, especially when you're like, oh, I've got the idea and I think it's right and I want to explore it. It can be hard to like have your mouth and your fingers go as fast as your head. You know, it's a different kind of programming, but it's one that has some real benefits. You know, my experience has been is that overall things go faster, you get better results, you find bugs earlier when there are two sets of eyes on the code. It's definitely something that I want you to explore in this class and to get some experience with. Any other thoughts on pair programming? Any observations? Anything that didn't ring true with you based on your experiences? Okay. So let's talk about our expectations for pair programming in this course. So, chat out of the way. So, centered on the page. So, you know, for many years, the conventional wisdom was, listen, you know, these software engineers, these programmers, they're smart, highly paid people. No, we should leave them alone to let them do their thing. They'll do it quickly and give them lots of caffeine and sugar, and you know, and then they'll be able to you know, do awesome things and do it all by themselves because, oh my gosh, you know, they don't like to talk with each other. But for many years, this was seen as the root cause for a number of problems with software development. So you know, ended up with a code base that was only understood by one person because it just matched one person's worldview, one person's nomenclature, one person's naming style for things, and so it was very difficult for other people to contribute. So as your team grew, or as your organization grew, as people left, people came in, it was very difficult to then engage in the code. Also, we found that it was much easier to make decisions that were really suboptimal because there wasn't a variety of points of view taken into account when decisions were made. However, you know, the thinking today is that software engineering is a team sport, right? It takes multiple people to bring a product to fruition, and that the best results are produced when you've got people collaborating with each other, when everybody brings what they know and what they think to be true to a problem. And so nowhere is this better exemplified than in pair programming and in mob programming, also called swarm programming, and there's, you know, other terms for it, but the whole idea is like, you know, you've got two people working on a problem, or you've got a bunch of people working on a problem. Tonight we'll be, and for the next couple of weeks, we'll be exploring pair programming, but later in the term we'll have several opportunities to experience mob programming. So as we saw in that video, in these styles of programming, there are more than one people looking at the code. So it's not just a matter of like people sharing documents or just even talking at a whiteboard. No, they're writing the code together, you know, the most authentic act of software development. And when you do this, what you end up with is very short feedback loops, which is great, because then you can you know, make decisions, and you can integrate learning as quickly as possible. And it's not just one person integrating learning and improving on it. It's everybody having shared learning, taking multiple points of view into account, and making decisions that way. Now, when it comes to this course, I want to reiterate that your programming projects are individual projects. It's the nature of the thing that influences your grade, right? So the majority of your grade is your work, which I believe is the way it has to be. And so your programming assignments, so developing the airline application, doing the cones, those kind of things, that is individual work. However, I want you to experience pair and mob programming. And so what we'll be doing is a series of in-class activities in which you will work with other people to contribute to the implementation of what are called code katas, which are simple little programming projects that are good for exploring new languages or new APIs. So what I'd like you to do is, well, actually, in a little while, I will send everybody into breakout rooms. Actually, I'll put some breakout rooms and let you determine where you want to go for tonight. I'm not going to assign partners on the first night. What I'd like you to do is decide amongst yourselves who should create a public GitHub repository. So this is a repository because it's collaborative. It can be public. Anybody can see it. This is great. But remember that your project code is in a private repository. So please re-step through those the steps for like creating that bare clone of my repository. I recommend that you start from there, because that gives you a Java setup all ready to go with all of your with the unit tests and integration tests, all that stuff that you're used to for your projects. You just create another one of those. Oh, and I also recommend that you make your partners collaborators on the repository, so you can all commit changes to it. It'd be easier to pass the code around that way. So again, and just in case you've forgotten, because it's been a couple of weeks, if you go to the Getting Started repository, there are all these instructions here at the beginning of the README. about doing the bear clone. Instead of calling it Portland State Java Winter 2022, call it Portland State Java Winter 2022 katas or something like that. Or give yourself a funny whimsical name. Do whatever you want. It really doesn't matter what you call this. And inside that repository, there is a create kata project script, which requires a project name and a one-word team name. And from that, it will create a new project in that repository. And we'll walk through that shortly. So this will give you some code that are going to give you the skeleton, give you a Maven project and all that stuff that you're used to from your airline projects to work with. Now, IntelliJ has this really cool feature called Code with Me. Oops. Sorry, I want to open up a new tab. Actually, I can just watch this in this quick video.
Code with Me lets you share your JetBrains IDE with others, working together to learn, review, or solve problems all on a single project, no matter the language. Invite friends and colleagues to join a session, and you can all use powerful, familiar IDE features to collaborate on one project. Browse, navigate, and edit the code, see inspections and invoke quick fixes, remotely run unit tests, and run and even debug the application as a group with integrated video calls. Joining a session is quick and easy. No need to install an IDE, just click the link to download a simple, lightweight client. There's no project to check out from source control. All the files stay on the host machine. No compilers or tool chains to configure, no dependencies, and no indexing. Just join the session and you're ready to go. The Code with Me client is very familiar. Use the project view or search everywhere to open a file, and use go to declaration, find usages, and other rich IDE features to navigate around. Each participant gets their own text cursor, and everyone can see edits made in real time, with full code completion for everyone in the session. The IDE also provides code insights to all participants, analyzing the code and showing inspection highlights with intentions and quick fixes, just a simple Alt-Enter away. Participants can be working on different files at the same time, so use the jump to or follow commands to see where someone is editing. Great for pair programming. If you're teaching or leading a review, you can force others to follow you, and they will see the files you navigate to. And full sync mode allows anyone to take the lead. Code with Me helpfully tracks file edits in separate change lists, one for each participant, which makes it much easier to review changes and roll back. Guests will see the available run configurations and can run or debug a project if they have permissions. Everyone will share the debug tool window and see call stacks and local values, add watches, evaluate expressions, and add or remove breakpoints. Click on the gutter icons to run tests, no matter the language or test framework. If they can run on the host machine, they can run with Code with Me. Results are visible to all participants, making fixing failing tests much easier. The terminal tool window is also available to guests, although read-only by default. Permissions can be changed at any time during the call, and trusted guests can be given full control, although the guest's actions are always visible to the host. Permissions are set to read-only by default, but can be easily customized. A guest can be read-only or allowed to edit files, and sensitive files can be hidden by the host. The guest can view the output of run and debug, or can be allowed to control the debugger themselves. The session is end-to-end encrypted, verified when connecting with a cryptographically generated security code that is visible only to the host and guest. The session is coordinated by a JetBrains server that of course cannot view this encrypted data, or you can host a private server in your own network if you wish. Code with Me is bundled with the latest version of most IntelliJ-based IDEs, so just click the toolbar button to start pair programming to solve a problem. You can invite the whole team if you get stuck, or guide someone through a code review, share knowledge of a new subsystem, run a technical interview, or even use your own IDE remotely from a different machine. There are lots of scenarios where Code with Me can help. Try it with your team. Thanks for watching.
They rolled this out, I don't know, a year or so ago. We tried it over the summer, and some people really liked it. So I encourage you to use this also. Let's see here. If I go back to my IntelliJ, big here so everybody can see it. Oops, wait so everybody can see it. And let's see here, where was that? Tool, Code with Me. add, oh, that's not what I wanted. Tools code with me. Oh, actually, this is like a drop down, I guess. I don't want that project. Sorry, it's the wrong project. Let me just close my other projects. Maybe it's a little confused in terms of what project I wanted to share. There we go. Let's see here. Enable access and copy invitation link. Sure, that sounds good. Oh yes, version. We'll see read only for now. Do not start a voice call. Enable access. And then do I have some sort of like invitation here? Yep. Here, I'm gonna post the link. Let's see what happens. Feel free to join. Let's just take a couple minutes and experiment with this. So if you've got IntelliJ open, go ahead and join there. I think no one's joined yet. I'll give you all a minute. You can probably say join another IDE as participant. There. Anybody tried that yet? Mine is downloading code with me. Okay, so it's got to take a little while. I thought there was, yeah, you can also from your IntelliJ, you can also say join ID as a participant. Oh, there we go. Looks like Jacob got it. Okay. 2937. I think that's right. Okay. Everybody's joining. This is kind of cool. Okay. So then let's see here. I'll just do a little bit more programming here. So let's see here. I want to test that. Oops. Oh, looks like people are joining. So let's just do void, and my computer's starting to work pretty hard. This is a good sign. Oh, nice. So yeah, Eric's there with me. So I'll write the test, and then maybe you all can work over on the student class. So I will write the test saying, let's see here, create student from command line sets gender. And so then string, oops. Nice, everybody's joining. It's pretty cool. We got like a dozen people on. String gender equals other. And now when we have a student student equals student dot create student command line arguments. It would be name, oops, name GPA of 3.45, and then gender. Oh, I did it in the wrong order. Gender. And then I want to assert that student dot, can't get the gender. Pronoun? How did I do that? I don't remember the name of that. Or the code right now. Let's see here. Get gender pronoun. Oh, this is not. Oh, I don't have. I should have a gender pronoun. Like string get gender pronoun. Gender pronoun. Get gender pronoun equal to student dot other gender. Sorry, get other pronoun. Where is it? They pronoun equal to the pronoun. Student dot they pronoun. Nice. Okay, now if I try to run this. I'll say what? Oh yeah, because okay, you're right. It's gonna work with other, but it's not gonna work with female. Pronoun. Yep. Pronoun. Female pronoun. Now if I run this. Okay, it fails. Okay, so I've done the easy part. Now it's time for you to do the hard part. I need someone to make this pass. Now, actually, is anybody able to edit the student class? I might not have given anybody permission to do that. Nope. Let's see, permission security for new guests, permission details. There. Okay, now anybody new can, but can I? So no right access. So launching, okay. Okay, but nobody can, okay, so then, let's see here, I'll just start, I guess, can I? You'll edit now? Oh no, I have to do it like one at a time? That's super lame. Well, I obviously I didn't do it right, so force all to follow you, join another. I not set it for everybody. That's new guests. Permission details. Okay, well, I'll just go through and okay, well, it looks like somebody can. So who is that? It's Compute. Good. Okay. So cool. So then I'll just go through second people permissions and apply. And so now, what do you think? So people, where are we? What do we got to do to make this test pass? So talk amongst yourselves, chat amongst yourselves in the chat, and to figure out. Oh, do people get set permissions automatically? Okay. Nope. Some people got it. Some people didn't. Okay. I think. This is lame. Well, so what do we need to do? Any ideas? We're probably having this many people on the code. Some people have made some changes on those changes I made though. Oh, maybe some change over here, maybe. Oh yeah, I just made that. Sweet. I've lost track of where I am. I'll start going from the bottom up then. Okay, well, so then this is what we need to do to make this run. Can someone else try running it? Actually, do other people have the ability to run the test and see what happens? Anybody? Oh, I got some red lines here. Someone's changing some code. Nice, okay. Okay, so it looks like Jacob says that no, it's not able to. Okay, so good. So convenient get pronoun function. What's the question? The question is, how do we get this test passing? So let's see here. This code looks like it's not compiling anymore. I'm gonna undo these changes by Miss Moreau. Gonna run the test again to see if it's passing. Nope, still there. Okay. Who has an idea of how to make this code pass? Add case to create student from command line arguments. Okay, hey, Eric, I'm gonna follow you, and do you have an idea of how to do that? Here, I'll follow you. So where are you? So like, yeah, how about you, yeah, there we are. Okay, so what do you got? Yeah, okay. Oh, what tab and IntelliJ did you follow to get us into this project that David sent us? Oh yeah, so Susan, it's here. There's a little code with me. At least I have in mine a little code me drop down, and you can say join another IDE as participant, and that's where you can put in that link that I sent you. I think that'll work. Oh, sorry, did you do it? Hey, Eric, if you feel comfortable doing so, could you come off mute and maybe, although maybe you're just swearing underneath your breath or something, but it would be interesting to hear your thought processes as you're writing this code.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You sound great.
Yeah, can you hear me? All right, sweet. Sorry, I kind of not.
No?
Don't remember all of these pronouns and up here.
Oh, I feel I'm gonna mute myself here.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah, I'll run it and give it a try.
I realized I did not explain that at all.
Well, how about before I run, how about you explain what you did?
Yeah, so I was just because the default was already at other, I decided to already create the default at other, and then if it did, equal a female gender as far as the argument goes, then assign it to female pronoun. Sorry, it's really hard to talk because I hear my.
Oh, you do? Darn, I muted the room.
So
Interesting. Okay, well, hey, let's roll the dice and see what happens. Okay, gender she not supported yet. So what does that mean?
have to add it to the get gender pronoun.
Well, let's take a look at line 111 here. You made this change. You changed other to pronoun. What is that argument? Is the gender that's passed in there? Now it used to be hard coded to be other, but now you're passing in she, and that's what it's complaining about. It's saying, hey, this gender she is not supported yet. So I think you're really close. Does anybody else see the bug here? Yeah, none? See here, do you have edit access? Sorry, can't tell where you are on here. Nathan, sorry, okay, yep. Yeah. Yeah, give you permission. So yeah, I'll go ahead and follow you. Okay, so what do you got? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, right. So you can't call that because it's not static. And I'm going to quick look at the declaration of that method. I think that method could be static. You want to make that method static and see what you're doing? Okay. Run that again. No, we're getting the same thing. Gender she. Oh, sorry, no, it hasn't run yet. Oh, no, we did get the same thing again. Gender she is not supported. Oh, nice. It looks like whatever you're typing is coming up with my coming up on my keyboard shortcuts. Yep. Okay, any other ideas of how we can get this test to pass? Nope. Let's see here. It's got some IntelliJ warnings. What's it saying? Pronoun is assigned but never accessed. Well, I think we can just, let's, what does it tell me I can do? I can remove it. Okay, cool. And this is like, let's see here. The statement has empty body, so I think we can remove this one also. Now, if I run it, I don't think I did anything. It's probably still gonna fail in the same way, but let's just see. So let's see here. Here are my tests. I'm here. I get from, so when I call this, I create the new student, and when I call get gender pronoun, it says that she is passing in a pronoun. Oh, Jacob, looks like you might figure something out. You wanna, I'm gonna follow you and see what you can do there. So like, what are you thinking?
Maybe I'll talk out loud.
Mhm.
So, got a bunch of tabs, just 1 second here. Okay, so I guess the student constructor takes string gender and then calls get gender pronoun. So in main, do find it, or not make the student, you can create student, is give it the gender as is. And then I guess momentarily we're gonna have to catch an exception that might throw. But I mean, just to make it pass those, that one test. You just need to pass it R1, I guess, R1. So yeah, it looks like you don't need this. That's just a gender pronoun. Right, so that's a little better.
Okay.
Now I will run this test. I don't think so.
Wonder if I can I make it so you can run the test on it. Let me see. Permission details, run debug, full access. Can you run it now?
I will try.
No, looks like something's happening. Nice. And it passed. Yeah. Well, so I'm seeing that it ran, and maybe everybody else did too. Oh, you're right. Yeah, no, but you ran tests. That was good. Okay.
Okay. Now I think.
No, that says non-numeric GPA still.
Oh, I'm doing it from the like context menus at the top.
Oh.
It won't let me click the button on the side.
On the gutter? Okay, well, you ran them all. By the looks of it. Oh, and you're in student IT by the looks of it, not student test. No, you're the right one. Oh, no, it ran student test and everything passed. So I'll just run it too.
If you can run the correct one, yeah, I haven't been able to run the correct test.
Okay, that's weird. Okay, and it passed. Sweet. Okay, let's see here. I guess I can commit this code now. Nice. So that is what Code With Me is like. It's a really cool feature of IntelliJ. It's something that we've used to good effect at work. So collaboratively made a test pass. So now I'm going to end this session here. Let's see, turn off access and disconnect all. Bye-bye. So anyway, that's code with me. I encourage you to use it for your pair programming. Note that at least when last time we used it, there was like a session limit of like a half an hour or something. But however, if you get an academic license for IntelliJ, I believe you have unlimited, and that's what I have. I think you have unlimited collaboration time, which is really awesome. So very shortly after I'm done with this, we're going to do some pair programming. So let's see here, but there's some important things that you need to know first because there is an assessment part of the pair programming. So for the course, each student is required to participate in one pair programming exercise and one mob programming exercise during the course. Like tonight, I think pretty much everybody's here. If you choose to participate in the pair programming, that will count as your one. Each round of pair programming, we're going to do some pair programming, and then we're going to do some in-class discussion. So please come back after the break. I want to hear about your experiences. I encourage everybody who's remote to come off mute and speak, but of course you can also chat. Additionally, there is a quiz, which is all about having you reflect on your experiences pairing and mobbing. So I've got a short answer quiz. There's a couple of questions, basically asking you, hey, what did you think? What was effective? What was ineffective? However, there's some information, so if you need to write it down or whatever, I want to know who it is that you paired with, who you teamed up with. I want you to provide a link to the GitHub repository that contains your code. Now, just to set expectations, I'm not going to execute the code. I'm not going to try to compile it or anything. If it's completely busted, that's okay. We're just looking for evidence that, yes, you did some pair programming, that you were part of coding with someone else. I don't think the code to be completed, but hey, if you get, making a project, the product progress, that's pretty cool. I also, but primarily what I'm interested in is what your experiences were pairing and mobbing. So, what you observed, what you experienced, what you felt, what you learned from the experience, and then also just your thoughts on where pairing and mobbing would be effective and would be ineffective. So this does count as part of your grade, but you're not being graded on the code you write. You're being graded on your ability to reflect and think critically about what you've experienced. And one more time, just to be super clear, these in-class katas are the only time that where it's appropriate to use pair and mob programming. Your projects, the airline project, the codes, certainly the final exam, things like that, those must be completed individually. And just to avoid any appearance of plagiarism. Okay, any questions about pair programming, about the tools that we'll use, about how it impacts your grade? Nope. Okay. Let's talk about what we're going to pair program. Let's talk about, code katas. Well, so I'm not going to go through this entire explanation, but a kata is a little learning exercise from martial arts, something that you do over and over again. It's a thing that you do like every day to get better at a skill that you want to build. And so then a number of years ago, people started writing a series of coding katas to help people learn new programming languages, to explore concepts in software development. And so then this is a nice article that explains everything. I'm not going to go through it here. But our source for these pair and mob programming exercises are these coding katas. And the first one we're going to do tonight is as a simple kata to begin with. It's called leap years. So here I'm just going to post it in the chat. Also, I encourage you all to look at it. But basically, what you're doing is you are going to write a program that determines whether or not a given year is a leap year. And here are the, oh, someone's trying to join. Manage participants, admit. Looks like I got them there. Oh, nice. Okay. Done. And yeah. And so then basically what you're going to do is write a little program. Please use test-driven development. So write some tests and write some code that's being tested. That determines, given a year as a number, sure, make it easy, whether or not that year is a leap year. And here are all of the criteria for whether or not a given year is a leap year. So here's what I'd like you to do tonight. I'm going to very shortly break everybody up into breakout rooms. And then we will spend, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. Actually, first of all, let's take a break until the top of the hour. Then when we come back, we'll do a couple of things, break out into breakout rooms, create yourself a new repository. And let me go through that step again, just so that everybody can see it. First off, I am going to create a new repository. Sorry, it's probably a new repository. And I'm going to call it Portland State Java Winter 2022 katas. I'm going to make it public. I don't want any readmes. This time it's okay for you all to make it public. Okay, create the repository in GitHub. Now I'm going to go back to the getting started repository. I'm going to post this link too, just so that everybody's got it real easily. I'm going to follow the directions again for doing the bear clone. So I'm going to go up a directory. I'm going to make, a bear clone of this one right here, my Portland State Java getting started. I'm going to cd Java getting started.git. Then I'm going to do git push mirror of that newly created repository, which I should have kept open in a different tab. So let me go back to my repositories, look for my katas. I just created it right here. Here is the git URL. And sorry, I'm going to go back here. I did the bear clone. Now I cd to that directory. I'm going to do a git push -- mirror to my katas repository. Did that. Everything get there, everything got there. Sweet. I'm going to remove, let's see here, Java getting started.git. I'm going to remove this directory. Now I'm going to make a regular clone of my katas repository. I'm going to go to Portland State Java. Oops. Really annoying. 22 katas. Don't have anything special there. Now I'm going to use the create katas, create kata project. This thing takes two things, the project name, I'll call it leap year, and team name, tweed, because I'm the professor, that's why I should wear it. You can call yours whatever you want. Okay, and so that creates a new project. This is just like creating a project one, or just like creating the project 0. And now I've got a leap year project. So I'm going to open this up in IntelliJ. going to open, and this is just like what you were doing for your projects. I'm going to open the winter katas, this top level pond. Open it as a project. There we go. It's too small for the screen resolution. It's loading everything up. Hopefully it finds my leap years. Nice, it's got leap year right here. So now I'm going to go into leap year. I'm going to do my Maven W clean verify, which I can't because I haven't modded it yet. Make sure everything builds. Again, just like your projects, it's using like exactly the same, setup and everything. Okay, that looks good. So now let's get add leap year. Good question from Drew. Prepare programming, are both people supposed to create a Git repo? No, only one person does. Or hey, if you've got some, so create one this week and you can use it in future weeks too. But no, only one person needs to create it. Add the POM, because there are changes there, and then git commit. Sorry, what was I going to do? Oh, I was going to say added leap year kata. Push. And now I should see here, I'm in my katas repository. Add leap year kata, it's building it. Everything looks good here. So those are the steps that you need to go through. Again, it's on the getting started page. Here's what I'm going to do. Let's go into breakout rooms now and sort of decide maybe who's going to do what. Take a little break before you get started. Do what you need to do, and then just come back to your breakout rooms, and I'll pause the recording. I'll start poking my head into people's breakout rooms to see if you got any questions. And if you do have a question, just raise it and I should see it. Okay, before we sort of go off on our own for like a half an hour, 45 minutes, any questions before we do that? Nope. Okay, I'm gonna pause recording.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back. Well, good deal, everybody. I poked my head into the breakout rooms. Looks like everybody was getting started, making good use of GitHub and IntelliJ and code with me. I'd like to spend just a few minutes, 10, maybe as many as 15, debriefing on the experience. As we mentioned, as we discussed, as you told me before, many of you had not experienced pair programming before, and I was curious about your experiences, both in terms of what it was like, and then also how far you got, how you're feeling about it overall. So I encourage you to, let's see here, how should I do this? I wish I could see everybody's, can I see everybody in a way that doesn't like make my screen go all crazy? So if I say participants, can I open this? Yeah, pop out, good there. Okay, that's what I want to see. So if you would like to share your experiences, please raise your hand in Zoom. I'll call on you to come off mute and like go on camera. That would be fine too. To talk about your experiences, if you want to show up your code, you can show up your code too. So what was it like? Tell me and the rest of your class what it was, what your experiences were like doing pair programming.
I can say something.
Yeah.
I can say something.
Thanks, Lyndon.
I am on echo though. In a pretty big way. I enjoyed it. I'm not very familiar with Java. I can't talk like this.
Yeah, are you getting a lot of echo or something? Sorry, London, are you getting a lot of echo?
Yeah, I'm getting, is that different now?
We're not hearing anything here in the classroom, but
Oh, you're not.
well, we're trying.
Other,
Darn it.
the Zoom is.
Okay.
I think both the app and your laptop are outputting the Zoom audio to the speaker.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid. Okay, so let me here. Wait, let me try something.
You can also just type it.
What do I want? I guess I want to turn down.
That looks muted. Maybe try that.
So try it. Oh, I just muted. That's the muting microphone though. Okay, there you go. London, are you? How about
Hello.
now? Is that better?
Hello. It is not.
Ah,
It is not.
don't understand. Now?
Testing?
Any better?
No, still echoey.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on then. Okay, we can try something different next week then. Okay, right. I suppose you can always turn off your speakers while you're talking and then turn it back on again, but that's tough to do. I wonder what's going on there. We heard during the playback also, right? When we were playing back the video, there was that echo.
Yeah, and whenever you would, like the alert bell would sound through the speakers as well, which makes me think that the Mac was making some audio. I think that maybe if you leave audio on Zoom or
I already have. I don't have audio on. Huh.
or like stop sharing, like
Maybe?
share screen.
I'm not sharing my screen either
Oh,
from the laptop. I can leave the meeting, I suppose, but then we're done with breakout rooms. Give that a trial, but now I worry about like the recording and stuff.
right.
So-
I think it's recording on the laptop and stuff. So.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's recording to the cloud. Okay, well, this sucks. Derf. Okay, how about people text? Oh, man, name.
If you just mute the speakers temporarily.
I don't know if I can do that with this, but then you won't be able to hear.
Yeah, but I'm just one person.
Then I won't be able to hear.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
So although you can turn your speakers, I can get on the headphones. So I really want to hear about people's experiences. So we'll try this. So let's see here. I will join the audio.
Recording in progress.
Okay, and I'm just going to leave the room then. So Jacob, is that okay? If I turn off the room here,
Yeah.
you won't be able to hear. Okay. London, could you come off mute and see if this is any better?
Hi.
Just a moment. It's still leaving the assign a new host.
Oh, geez. Okay. Hello. Can people hear me? So I can no longer hear an echo.
There, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, that seems to have worked. Whatever you've done.
Okay, so yeah, I was talking about the room audio. That's messed up.
Okay. I just was going to say that I thought it was helpful. It took a while to get set up, but I enjoyed it. I'm not super familiar with unit testing, so having someone to bounce ideas off of was helpful in
Good.
that sense. And yeah, that's all.
Excellent, thank you. No, I appreciate that. It's always interesting for me to hear what it's like for people to experience for the first time. This particular kind of collaboration. Thanks. Who else would like to share their experiences about what they learned tonight, what they saw, and what their code was like?
I can share. We also spent a fair bit of time on setup, but I have pair programmed a little bit before, and this time it's sort of the same. It's really nice to just be able to talk with someone else. I think it's interesting to like decide what you're going to do, like what your approach is going to be, and then watch someone else write code and they just will do something very differently than I would have, even on a relatively small scale. And I find it really helpful it just makes me like reframe my thinking and see different ways to do things. And I really like that aspect of it.
Nice. Those are great observations. Yeah. Thanks, Addison. A couple others. Did anybody find it just like incredibly uncomfortable, or just not a good experience?
I'll share. I thought it was kind of tough to navigate through all the screens. I usually like to code with the split screens, the class on the left side and the test on one side. And I was realizing that when I was trying to follow my teammate as they're coding, and I see them jumping from page to page, but then it only happened in one of those split screens. And so the other one was completely useless. And if I were to use my full screen, then I can't have that split screen view. And it was difficult to, it was like trying to figure out where things were happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, good observations. We don't have a lot of experience using code with me, and that's true. I mean, I think when trying to follow someone else, especially when they're jumping around, or like, which I do when I code, right? I'm like, oh, maybe it's up here. What if I need to look at it down here? Yeah, I can see where that might be a jarring experience. Cool. Excellent. Thank you all for sharing. How about one other person? Who else would like to share their experience as pair programming?
It was a little bit interesting trying to split up like who does what. Because we did a little bit less of the kind of what we saw in that video where one person's watching, and we did a little bit more of like, we were kind of delegating between ourselves different tasks. Specifically, like, Santiago is doing some of the tests, and I was writing some of the like the constructor and everything as we were putting it together, and we were just discussing all of the different, like, what needed to go where. So it's kind of interesting. We kind of stayed out of each other's hair, and in that we weren't doing things on the same file, but we were trying to figure out who does what. And I thought it worked out pretty well, because we discussed what needed to happen at each step and then kind of collaborated. But we did have our the code with me blow up.
Are you getting feedback now?
I'm not hearing any, I think.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I know that Santiago's client crashed at some point. But aside from that, it went pretty okay.
Okay, interesting. So I think that was a bug in code with me or something?
I think it was like something to do with the ID as a whole. It just like
gotcha. Yep.
Oh yeah, just to explain, I don't know what it was, but it was like right after we got kicked from the breakout rooms. I don't know what it was. When I tried clicking back into it, it's just like I couldn't click anything, to the point where I had to literally cancel the process with my task manager, because it was just frozen and I couldn't even close it. So but I have no clue why that was the issue, but yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, good to know. Cool. Okay. Thanks. Would anybody else like to share?
We also had the crashing issue in our room. So my two teammates both had IntelliJ crash on them when we were using code with me. And we kind of used the screen sharing as a backup for a while, but then they would, they had to like force quit and then restart and rejoin, and then it worked out. But overall, it was great. It was pretty fun.
Cool. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, but it didn't crash, but it was super slow. So I had to close out the application that were open. But I think it was because I was just sharing my screen using Zoom. And I think those two applications are heavy, and opening them at the same time can make your computer slow. But also when I tried to share at first, I tried to share with full permission, and that tried to start, I think, an audio and video call while I was also sharing on Zoom. So that kind of, yeah. But once it worked out, it was pretty smooth. We finished what we're trying to implement.
Nice, good deal. Would you mind sharing your code with class? Put it up on the screen. Walk us through your solution.
Yeah, Jacob and I, we can do that. Yeah.
Cool.
Let me open it up.
Hey, Jacob, do you want to come off mute? If so, what I'll do is I'll turn this off and then you can, yeah, okay, just a moment here. We are playing audio games here. Okay, Jacob can't hear you yet, but Jacob, if you come off mute and then you can come on speaker.
Can you see my screen?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So first mistake we made, we named this Ripia instead of, actually our project was named Riptays. You'll see somewhere in there. Actually, this is yours, sorry.
Yeah, you're looking at mine.
I was like, we made a mistake. I don't see that, but it should be right here.
Actually named it Leap Day.
Yeah, so that was the first mistake, but we said keep going and try to implement. So our main code is in here, and we decided to just write a Boolean method that takes in the year and then return true if it's a leap year or false if it's not. So one of the reasons we chose to do, actually the main reason, is that we wanted to be able to unit test this. And we actually started by writing the unit test first. So by going through the rules that were provided, yeah. So we went through this and came up with like this first unit test. So if it's divisible by 400, then it's a leap year. So I think this is the first test that Jacob wrote, and I wrote this one. So if it's an odd number, then it's not. So we wrote those first, and then we went and wrote the implementation, and then added the other use case, and then completed the unit test and the implementation.
Nice.
I don't know if Jacobo wants to add something on that. Yeah. So that was our experience. Yeah.
Hey, sorry about that. My Zoom crashed apparently. Everything's crashing tonight. We're breaking the internet. Is that still a thing? Anyway, let's just a final couple things on the pair programming the code katas. First of all, thank you for doing all that tonight. We will have 2 more chances to pair program. I encourage you to come back next week and the week after that to take advantage of those opportunities. I think as you get an opportunity to pair with different people on different problems, you learn more about the experience. And all those experiences will inform the quiz, the reflection that is due, I think it's due 3 weeks from tonight. So then you should have plenty of observations to take into account. So let's see here. Finally, what I wanted to talk about, the last thing in class, is Project 3. So Project 1 was due tonight. In Project 1, you created your foundational classes for your airline application. So this is your airline and your flight. You got some experience parsing the command line. In Project 2, you implemented the ability, or you will implement the ability, to read and write from a text file that describes an airline. In Project 3, you'll write what's called a pretty printer for your airline. So the goal here is to work with more I/O facilities in Java, and in particular with the date class, the Java util date that represents a date, a point in time. So there are some new requirements for this project that you'll be implementing. So when it comes to representing the arrival and departure times for your flights, those will now be represented as instances of Java util date. So instead of just strings, you'll be using date objects to represent them. So for this project, you'll need to override the get arrival and get departure methods on abstract flight. Right now, they just return null. They don't do anything. Now you actually have to have them do something. And also the implementation of your get arrival string and get departure string methods will change to format those dates, the appropriate dates, using something called dateFormat.short. This is all explained in the core API lectures. Also, flights are now sorted. There is now an order, a natural order to flights. They are sorted alphabetically by the code of their source airport, their originating airport. And if you have two flights that depart from the same airport, they should be sorted chronologically by their departure time. If you have two flights or multiple flights that depart from the same airport at the same time, those are considered to be the same flight. And all of this is within the definition of the Java Lang comparable interface. Again, this is all covered in the core API. But this is more functionality that you need to add to your flight class. You won't be modifying, well, you may or may not have to modify, depending on how you do. You may or may not have to modify your text parser and your text dumper. But you will be implementing a new implementation of airline dumper called Pretty Printer. And this is a class, a Pretty Printer class, takes a airline object and generates a nicely formatted textual representation. So the text format for the text dumper and text parser is meant to be consumed by a computer, right? You have the text parser reads whatever the text dumper was able to write out. The Pretty Printer, however, is meant to generate text that's consumable by a human. So I recommend that you make it nice looking, using indenting, using ASCII or whatever it is that you think makes for a good looking, pretty format for the airline. And I also suggest that you make use of the date format class to format the dates to make them look nice. This is an opportunity to explore these APIs to see how date formatting works in Java. There's also a class called airport names, which will give you the name of the city in which an airport resides. Note that also your Pretty Printer should indicate the duration of each flight in minutes. All of the functionality, so the functionality of Projects 1, 2, and now Project 3 are driven through a main class called Project 3. It has the following command line interface. It has all of the same arguments as before, and all the same options, but now there's a new option called -pretty. So the -pretty option instructs the program to pretty print the airline and its flights to either a text file, if a text file, which is provided after the -pretty. And by the way, this file is different from the text file that's used to read and write. So maybe I should just say a file in text format. I don't know. Or if the name of the file is dash, it should print it to standard out. This is kind of an old school Unixy thing, but if you say -pretty dash, then it should write the flight, all the flights in the, write the airline and all the flights to standard out. But otherwise, the behavior of -text file, -print, and -readme are all the same as in previous projects. So let's see here. A couple of notes here. The 3-letter airport codes given on the command line should be case insensitive. And I guess implied by that, if there is an airport that doesn't exist, or that you that don't know the name of the city that the airport is in, it should be considered an error. Note that the pretty printing should happen after the new flight has been added. Remember, invoking this program adds a new flight to the airline, and then if dash pretty is there, it should print out all of the flights, including the newly added one. Oh, and note that the format of the date and time has changed. It's no longer 24-hour time. It's now got an AM PM, and so there are 3 components, 3 command line arguments to the to each time, both the departure time and the arrival time. Again, all the same error handling applies as before. Please, exit gracefully. So let's see here. Oh, and there's a new constraint here, a new thing. If a flight's arrival time is before its departure time, don't worry about time zones. Then it's an error, right? You can't have a flight that arrives before it departs. And similarly, if the 3-letter code does not correspond to a known airport. So another incremental change to your airline application. This project is due in 2 weeks. Yes, 2 weeks from tonight, and that's February 2nd. And note that the projects are starting to come kind of fast and furious now, right? You just finished project 1, you got project 2 that's due next week. Project 3 is due the week after that, and you've got your codes. So things are starting to heat up. So please plan your time accordingly. And I just want to reiterate what I said at the beginning of class. If you're struggling, especially if you get sick or if people around you are sick, please let me know. We will work something out. However, I want to make sure you can get the most out of this course. So please put in the time that you can, and if you are impeded from that, I appreciate a heads up, and we'll try our best to work something out. Any questions on project 3? Let me get the chat up. I realize that's gone off screen. Okay. Well, good deal. Okay, I guess it was another long night. But I hope you had some fun pair programming. We'll be doing more of it next week. It'll be another kata. It'll be a little bit more complex. And in the meantime, please reach out to me with any questions, preferably on Slack, but of course, email also works too. So have a great week, everybody. Stay warm, stay safe. I look forward to doing it all again next week. Bye now.